Well, coming up in this episode, man, we got to talk about it, man. Stephen A. Smith weighs in on the controversy that's going on in the WNBA when Minnesota Lynx head coach Cheryl Reeve showed up to a game against the Indiana Fever over this past weekend wearing a trans kids belong shirt underneath her blazer. And directly after the game, Sophie Cunningham speaks out, and this just caused an explosion. And it seems like a lot of people have left Sophie Cunningham on an island when she spoke up for protecting women in women's sports. But it seems like Cheryl Reeves condones transgenders that are born a male and are transitioning to a female. They should be able to compete against female athletes. And we got to talk about it coming up right after this.
Yeah. K-Sap in the building. Let's go. Simply ball dropping podcast. Turn me up. Turn me up. K-Sap on the mic. We don't talk light. Nah. Sports talk heavy. Every take got bite. Angel Reese on the glass. Big boys. Big smoke. WNBA heat. Better wake up, folks. Wake up. Brown talk live. Shador in the frame. Coach Brown. Colorado. Respect on the name. See you aunties in the chat. They gon' ride for the truth. K-Sap. Bring the fire from the booth to the booth. Fire. Tell a friend to tell a friend. It might not be for you, but it might be for them. Like, comment, subscribe. Come join the crew. Hush, verse, salute. See everybody in the comments too. Salute. Simply ball drop it. Simply ball drop it. Let's go.
Well, guys, man, Stephen A. Smith didn't pull no punches when it came to Cheryl Reeves, man. He took a direct shot at Cheryl Reeves because we all know what's going on in the WNBA. We've seen everything that has transpired through the WNBA All-Star Weekend. We've seen the stud buds. We've seen clips and footage of some things that are going on that a lot of people are talking about. And, you know, in this particular situation, man, the WNBA supports the LGBT community, and the LGBT community supports the WNBA. Now, when it comes to transgender athletes, that should be a no-brainer. Transgender athletes should not be able to compete in women's sports if they was born a male and they're transitioning to a female. They're still a male. They still have that testosterone, and they still have an advantage. And Sophie Cunningham is against that. And it seems like the head coach from the Minnesota Lynx, Cheryl Reeves, condones the fact that they should let transgender kids participate in that sport. If they transition into a woman, they should be able to participate in women's sports. If they're transitioning from a woman to a man, they should be able to participate in men's sports. And Sophie Cunningham spoke up and voiced her opinion. And it seems like Sophie Cunningham is getting a little backlash. It seems like Sophie Cunningham is out there on an island by herself. Now, this might be a sensitive subject to a lot of people, and it should be. But Stephen A. Smith, I think he spoke for a lot of people. And he went right at head coach of the Minnesota Lynx, Cheryl Reeves. He went directly at her. He did not pull no punches. And he voiced his opinion because now it just comes down to common sense. And Cheryl Reeves is getting a lot of backlash. And a lot of people are coming at Cheryl Reeves. But Stephen A. Smith broke it down to a point where, man, hey, you got to use your common sense, man. And he said a lot of things that is very interesting. But before we get off into what Stephen A. Smith said, man, y'all guys do me a favor, man. Please like, comment, and subscribe on the video. And before we listen to what Stephen A. Smith said, I will say this. Now, Stephen A. Smith, a couple years back, on First Take, Monica McNutt was on there. Monica McNutt was basically telling Stephen A. Smith, with the platform that you have, you should start advocating more for WNBA and women's sports and started talking about the WNBA more on your platform, which they really don't. And Monica McNugget called him out. So now Stephen A. Smith, he's sitting back paying attention. And when certain issues come up like this, y'all know Stephen A. Smith is not going to pull no punches. So let's take a listen to what Stephen A. Smith had to say. And just pay close attention, man, because it's very interesting. Take a listen.
And that involves the WNBA coach. Her name is Cheryl Reeve. She's a coach in the WNBA.
You can tell he didn't know too much about Cheryl.
She is the coach of the Minnesota Lynx. And during this weekend, in a game against the Indiana Fever, she was seen wearing a Trans Kid Belong t-shirt.
Look at that shirt.
I'm going to repeat that. Trans Kid Belong t-shirt on Sunday during the game following the remarks from Indiana Fever player Sophie Cunningham. If you remember, this came after Sophie Cunningham defended her past statements on protecting girls from playing sports with transgender athletes. During an ESPN interview, Cunningham denied reports that she hates transgender people but wants to protect girls.
That's a fact.
If you remember, her quote was, "I think that I am here to extend love, but I also think with that love is truth, being honest. And I want to protect young girls in the locker room or young girls in sport who shouldn't have to go against biological men."
Totally agree.
On several occasions in the past, I've interviewed somebody by the name of Riley Gaines, who's a longtime advocate for biological men staying out of women's sports. Let me state for the record, I've interviewed Riley Gaines on at least 2 occasions. And I completely support Riley Gaines' position.
Everybody supports that.
Her resume speaks for itself, what she was as a swimmer. But I happen to also think she's a fantastic person to talk to, a highly intelligent young lady who's principled. And the thing that shocks me is like, this is not a conversation about being anti-anything.
Exactly.
This is a conversation about being pro-girls.
Totally agree. Shout out to the ladies.
Ladies and gentlemen, at some point in time, there has to be the return of common sense. This is not about preaching hate. Nobody is supporting that on this show. Nobody should be supporting that in our society. I am a live and let live kind of guy. I'm conservative fiscally. I can't stand paying these damn high taxes in states like New York, New Jersey, and California. But I'm pretty damn liberal with everything else, meaning live and let live. Until this issue came along.
Speak on it.
This is not about looking at people who are trans and hating on them or wanting denied their civil rights and civil liberties. That's not what this is about. If you're an adult and those are the decisions that you want to make with your life, I support your right to make those decisions. You're a trans individual and you transitioning from male to female, you ain't doing anybody any harm.
That's a fact.
If that's how you were born, if that's what you believe, if that's what's in your mind, your heart, your psyche, and there's a means upon which to facilitate that transition without harming other people, have at it. I fully support the trans community in that regard. Where you lose me is in 2 places. Okay? Number one, when you're talking about all your private parts remaining what they are as men and thinking that you get to use girls' bathrooms.
That's a fact.
I'm not down for that.
Shouldn't be.
Number 2, when you're trying to compete against women, against girls in women's sports, trying to act like there's no advantage when there's no way in hell that there's no advantage. This is not about being anti-anything. This is about being pro-girls, pro-females, pro women, pro ladies. That's what this is about.
Now, you heard exactly what Stephen A. Smith said, man. And that's a direct shot at Cheryl Reeves because of the fact that Cheryl Reeve came to the game with that trans kids belong. And that come directly after, like he stated, Sophie Cunningham's comments protecting women in women's sports. So who else was Stephen A. Smith talking about? Who else was he directing his comments toward? Because he started off his whole soliloquy. WNBA head coach of the Minnesota Lynx, Cheryl Reeve. So Stephen A. Smith had a message for Cheryl Reeve. And I don't blame Stephen A. Smith in one regards for his statement. I'm glad that you stood up and stood beside Sophie Cunningham, because it seems like Sophie Cunningham and nobody else is really backing her statements. And it seemed like Sophie Cunningham is out there on the island all by herself. Somebody stood up. Kudos to you, Sophie Cunningham, for voicing your opinion and trying to protect women in women's sports. Y'all do me a favor. Get down in the comments section.
I see everyone in the comment section, #salute. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on your post notifications so you will know every time I drop a hot banger. Oh yeah, just in case I forgot, tell a friend to tell a friend. It might not be for you, but it might be for them. And that will wrap up another episode of the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. I'm your host and the man behind the mic, K-Sap. Catch you on the next one. Deuces.